Just got back from Iowa. The family and I took a trip to Dyersville and to Ankeny. The trip to Dyersville was to visit the Field of Dreams movie house, which is of course the house and the baseball field from the movie. It's all still there. Big tourist attraction, but awesome place. If you've never been, you should go. It's like I said, it's fun. It kind of turns you into a kid in a way. That was one of my favorite movies growing up and still is, so I had a good time. I'll be posting a video on that shortly. But to this video, our second stop was the Iowa Aviation Heritage Museum in Ankeny, Iowa. Now the title of this video is the Byron Original Striking Back Airplanes 2018. What does that mean? Because Striking Back has been gone since 1997. Well, first a little history on Byron. For those that are new to my channel, I have probably one of the largest collections of videos from the Byron Originals Striking Back shows. The event started in Ida Grove, Iowa, which is western Iowa. And it was started by Byron Godberson, who was the owner of Byron Originals, who made giant scale kits of civilian aircraft, warbirds. But he took his interest in the hobby to a whole new level and started the 1/5 Air Force at Byron Originals. And he basically had a miniature airport in his backyard. And it was a big fun fly gathering every year. And eventually turned into having the Striking Back Air Show, which is a World War II reenactment. For those of my viewers that have been following me for a while, I'm sure you've seen the videos. It's one hell of a show. But the show ended in Ida Grove in 1991, which was actually the year that myself, my brother, my mom and dad went as a family. And what an amazing experience. I remember it like it was yesterday. You can see here what the flying site looks like. Of course, everything was based around a 1/5 scale size. Really a unique air show. And this is all still here. Everything at Ida Grove is still there. Besides the actual set pieces, like the train, the aircraft carriers, all that stuff. None of that's there anymore. It's just a big empty hill. But the runway's still there, the hangar's still there. But there's a house that somebody built right at the end of the runway. So nobody's flown model airplanes out there in more than 20 years. But anyways, shortly after it was Byron Godberson sold the entire outfit to a group in Ankeny, Iowa, in hopes that it would put it in a better spot where it's better suited for people to get to, more accommodations. Because in Ida Grove, you're out in the middle of nowhere. So if you're not camping, you're driving an hour or two to your hotel. So that was kind of a downside. But anyways, it was sold to an outfit in Ankeny, Iowa. So Byron Godberson and Byron Originals no longer really had anything to do with the show. They of course supplied the aircraft, which were purchased from them, but everything else was all done by a whole new set of individuals. And the intent was good. They put it right at the Ankeny airport, right off Interstate 35, and it never succeeded like it did in Ida Grove. Which I'm not surprised, but so most of the videos that I've uploaded were in Ida Grove, but I think 1993 Striking Back and 94 Striking Back, those are in Ankeny. So this is where I was. And in the museum was all the airplanes. And when I say the airplanes, I mean of course the big B-17, B-29, C-47, the B-25s, some other aircraft that were used in the show were in there. And they were donated to the museum in the late 90s, right after the Aviation Expo folded up. And they were donated to the museum under the agreement that they would never fly them or sell them. So they've been there all these years, so over 20 years. At the end of the video, my son and I kind of went somewhere we weren't supposed to. The old striking back set, at least where the runway and everything was in Ankeny, is still there, but it's been untouched for 20 years. So it's all overgrown, and it's inside airport property. So you can see here from the satellite video, or yeah, the satellite photo, that it looks like it's all still intact. It's just the concrete. But this is what it looked like in its heyday. So very similar to Ida Grove, but not quite as good. But anyways, I wanted to get a close-up look and see it for myself, and and you'll see when we get up there. But it's a funny video at the end because we were kind of pretty sure we were doing something we weren't supposed to do. But I got a couple of good shots of what that particular runway looks like now. So just to recap, I was in Ankeny, Iowa, not Ida Grove, not the home of Byron Originals, but the final the final place of the Striking Back Air Show. So, and when I was there at the museum, found a hat, a Aviation Expo hat. I bought 4 of them. These are old stock from like 20 years ago, and a 1993 booklet or a program for the Aviation Expo. So that's going in my collection. Alright, let's get to it. Hope you enjoy. Hey guys, we're on our final stop in Iowa at the Iowa Aviation Heritage Museum, which is the final resting place of all the large-scale RC airplanes that were used in the Byron original Striking Back Air Show. So let's walk over here and see what it's all in there. Of course, the first thing we see is the famous B-25 windsock, if you will. In Ida Grove, and as well as here in Ankeny, there was always a sign out front that had the dates for the fun flies and all the events, and this B-25 was always sitting on top of that sign, and here it rests. You really can't see it from here, but the Striking Back set in Ankeny is all pretty much gone now. There's some remains out there that you really can't see, but we'll go inside and take a look and see what's going on. Okay, we're inside the museum now, and I have to say I'm a little overwhelmed. I haven't seen these airplanes since I was 4 years old, so almost 30 years ago. Let's get some closer shots of the B-29 here. For many years, this was the world's largest scale model airplane, and still to this day probably one of the most impressive. It still has the original Quadra 100s up inside. Of course, the retractable gear and everything was all custom built just for this airplane by Byron. Look up inside the bomb bay in there. Still see all the actuators. This is showing a lot of years of wear and tear. This plane was around for a long time. This part I like right here. Check out these old Fatava servos. That's how they used to drive a large control surface back in those times. No large digital servos back then. There's some bubbling on the fiberglass. Like I said, this plane's been around for a long time. When I saw it fly in 1991, it actually had massive engine failures, lost all but one engine, and ended up coming short of the runway in the trees. I think they did more damage to the airplane getting it out of the trees than what actually happened when it hit the trees. That is so cool to actually be able to see these again. And the B-17 was built when the original B-29 was crashed, had a massive failure of some sorts, and the plane was lost. So the next year, which I believe was 1990, they unveiled the B-17. And this still has, I believe, the Sachs 4.2 engines, A&M Sachs that is. Same construction as the B-17. Look inside up there, see one of the fuel tanks is actually kind of dropped loose a little bit. And you can still see the receiver antennas poking out the side of the airplane and running out. Let's see what kind of servo that is up there on the throttle. Let's see if I can focus on that. Yep. Old Airtronic servo. I'll be damned. During the show, they flew a lot of Airtronics equipment. Airtronics and some of the earlier JR stuff. These servos, I'd like to get a few of these servos in my collection, the old IC servos from Futaba. Strong servos, and they had to be to move these control surfaces. And of course the C-47, which is probably one of, if not the oldest airplane that was used during the show. They debuted this one, I think, in 1985. So this plane's been around since '85. Of course, it has been flown since '97, which was the last year they did the show here. And I'm pretty sure that also had Sachs 4.2 engines in it. And just by looking at the bottom, you can see how many times this plane's been damaged. And because even though these were part of an air show, they're still RC airplanes, so accidents happen quite frequently. But there was only one C-47 ever built by Byron. And it's still, let me see if I can zoom in on that. It's got the 1/5 Air Force sticker on the nose still. That's pretty cool. Swing around here for a different shot. Now this is the plane that dropped all the parachuter guys during the show, and that's the mechanism up inside that held them all, and of course that's where they came out. Not scaled, but it was effective. Look at all the glue holding parts on. Way cool. Another shot of the B-17. I never saw the B-17 fly in person. I've only seen the B-29, of course, the C-47, B-25s and so forth. But I don't think they flew the B-17 the year that we all came up to Ida Grove. Of course, during the show they had scale PT boats in the water that a lot of people thought were radio control as well, but they were actually manned. You can see where the guy would sit in there. Pretty cozy sitting in there. These would shoot these little torpedoes out at the Japanese aircraft carrier. Of course, big puffs of smoke, explosions. And they got one of the tanks here. And this is the same way. The tanks were not radio controlled, they were manned. This whole compartment comes up here, the whole top turret. And you can still see the receiver antennas duct taped to the side of the airplane. Oh, and I can see some radio gear up in there. See if we can get a close-up shot of that. Look at that.
Picture time.
You can see the old Airtronics receivers and probably the 600 milliamp batteries attached.
was a good flying machine.
Oh yeah, from today's standards, it's amazing these things ever flew.
Oh, these model airplanes?
Yeah, I saw these fly when I was 4.
When they had the air show out
Yeah,
here.
not here actually, in Ida Grove.
No, we flew them at the air show here.
Yeah, these came from Ida Grove. They started at Byron Originals.
Is that where it was?
Yep.
Yep.
Ida Grove.
Yep.
In fact, if you come over here and look, you can see where it says Ida Grove.
Yeah, I got most of these flyers in my collection.
Yep.
In '91, when we were at Ida Grove, we went there as a family. This actually lost all but one engine on one of its flights and went down in a tree. And I think
This did?
Oh yeah.
And they had to rebuild it.
I think they did more damage to the airplane getting it out of the tree than the initial landing.
You know what I got at
Will
home?
they get a cherry picker and go
They,
up?
yeah, yeah.
I
Oh,
got
yeah.
a token from the Ankeny.
Even at the museum, they can let you watch some old striking back videos. Okay, we've looked at the B-29 and the B-17. Of course, up in the tail section up there, you can see more of the Futaba IC servos. Some old school stuff. It's hard to believe these flew so successful for so long. And the B-25s, they built, probably 4 or 5 of them throughout the years. Several were lost in accidents. I uploaded a video of one of them that was in a mid-air collision, and that was lost. They originally flew on, I believe, a Quadra 50 or a Quadra 42 on a gear drive, which was marginal performance, and they eventually upgraded to the Sachs 4.2 engine.
Yes, it would. There we go.
That's cool.
Sorry. Here they are.
I see something over here. The Cloud Dancer's Flying Superman. I know in some of the videos I've uploaded showed a flying Superman. And there he is. Looks like it's got a Super Tiger 2500 or a 3000. That's cool. I didn't know this guy was still around. Another good shot of the B-25 up there. And they still have the SR-71, which was built by Byron Originals in the early 80s, never to be used in a kit form, but it was used to show the performance of the Rossi 81s and the Byrojet package for ducted fans, because you got to keep in mind back in those days there were no turbine engines for model airplane use, so ducted fans was all we had. Didn't know that was still around either. Way cool. And besides all the Byron airplanes, which is the obvious reason I came, it's a really nice smaller museum. Lots of cool stuff. A lot of World War II artifacts, clothing and stuff like that. Also a lot of display models. Really is a cool museum. Lots of literature, photos, etc. And up here it looks like a Byron T-33 just hanging out. Got some really nice murals hanging up. Oh man. There's the shot right there. Mm-hmm. Too cool. And up top you can see what appears to be a Byron Hellcat, and in the back is one of the Zeros that would have been used during the show that would have been probably blown up because it's not detailed, you know, nothing too extreme. They didn't even have a functioning rudder because they were just going to be a one-time use. Lots of cool artifacts here. Of course, watching Striking Back. Not a lot of people have footage of the air show when it was here in Ankeny. Most of the videos that I've uploaded were in Ida Grove. I've seen this particular video a million times, so we're about to see the C-47 back there fire up, if I'm not mistaken. And there it is. And this is that airplane. And this is back in 1986. When this airplane was relatively brand new. There it is, taking off. All these years. And anybody that's new to my channel will go back through the archives and watch all of my Byron Striking Back videos. I probably got one of the largest personal collections. So I just noticed this P-51 here. I was talking to Mickey, one of the guys that works here at the museum. Says this was recently donated by one of the show team members, and the reason it looks so dingy is because this is one of the Mustangs that flew during the Striking Back shows, and you can see where it's got melted from flying through the fireballs. So how cool is that? You know, it's still covered in soot. So this thing has been through fireballs. And they're gonna hang it up as is, keep it just the way they saw it. Way cool. So I just learned that this Hellcat is actually one of the planes that was basically on display on the aircraft carriers during the Striking Back air show. That he put a new set of wings on it, a new set of tail feathers, because it was all rotted away from sitting out on the carriers. I was really hoping they would have had some of that older stuff still rotting away somewhere, because I would love to get my hands on it. But what they still have plans for. Alright guys, we may be on private property, I'm not sure. We're parked way over here at this hotel on the south side of the airport. There's Highway 35, and this is what remains of the striking back set here in Ankeny. Now from what I can see, you can just see some pavement right there. This is the very end of the runway, which would be the south end, and just past it you can see the kind of circular asphalt shape up there where the water used to be. So right about where these big bushes of trees right in front of me are, this is where the bleachers would have been. But this is all overgrown after been sitting for 20 years. So we're going to walk up a little bit further, but it's weird that all that grass is still mowed out there around the runway area. Like I said, we can see a little bit of the concrete on the runway.
Over here.
Okay, now I'm sure we're somewhere we're not supposed to be, but I'm going to take advantage of it. This is right where the bleachers and everything was. And this ditch right here is where the giant control tower they had used to sit. And all this old concrete is where the bleachers sat. And I'm going to run down here real quick because I don't know who's out here. In my defense, there were no signs as I was coming in.
It's like Mr. Tractor Dude's coming.
Is he? I'm just trying to get in and get out as fast as I can. So there's some of the remains of the control tower. And in there is the runway.
Alright, we should get out.
Here, let's run over. Okay, the remains of the runway are still here. Completely overgrown. The old area for the striking back set is just back there. Still there, just overgrown. We're on the runway. Like I said, it's been sitting for a long time. The remains of the old taxiway. There's one of the entrances to the runway there. So most of it's unrecognizable.
Wait, wouldn't they just take off from right here sometimes?
Nope, we're walking in what would be the pit area right now. I know I'm not supposed to be here, but you know what? I don't care.
Mud.
Alright, now we're back up into where the bleachers would have been. What a shame. Alright, let's get out of here before we get in trouble.